We all love Formula 1 now. It's a global theatre of carbon fibre and fireproof overalls. You've got billion-dollar teams hurling hybrid spaceships around corners at speeds that can turn your eyeballs into jam. There are wind tunnels, tyre compounds, political intrigue, and drivers who look like they've just walked off a Hugo Boss catwalk. It's fast, it's loud, and it's utterly ridiculous. But it didn't start with Red Bull dominance or Mercedes-sponsored spreadsheets. No, if you want to trace this circus back to its first high-speed act, you have to go to 1932. To a car that didn't just rewrite the rules, it wrote the bloody rulebook. The Alfa Romeo P3. The car that took motorsport out of its gentleman's club infancy and dropped it headfirst into the industrial age. The first proper single-seater Grand Prix car, the beginning of the arms race, the spark that lit the inferno. You see, in the late 1920s and early 30s, race cars weren't really cars. They were more like wheeled bathtubs with too much power, built by eccentrics with screwdrivers and a death wish. Alfa's previous Turbo A was a perfect example. It had two straight-8 engines, yes, two, sitting side by side like drunken twins trying to operate a typewriter. Each had its own gearbox and the thing was fast, but more complicated than a Swiss watch. But that's when Vittorio Jano entered the story. Now, if Enzo Ferrari was the godfather of Italian speed, Jano was its chief engineer. And in 1931, when he was told to build a replacement for the Turbo A, he didn't tweak, he didn't refine. He wiped the slate clean and started again, with purpose. Jano's masterpiece was the Turbo B, though history would remember it by its racing name, the P3. The core of the car was a straight-8 engine, made from two 4-cylinder banks cast in iron, bolted to a single aluminium block, each with its own overhead camshaft. It had twin-root superchargers, and thanks to them it breathed like a jet fighter and sounded like war.
From the early 1930s, a car that was designed by
At 2.6 litres and about 215 horsepower, it wasn't monstrously powerful by modern standards, but here's the thing, the whole car only weighed 700 kilograms. That's lighter than a Fiat Panda, and this being 1932, it wasn't held back by safety regulations or crash structures. It was an engine with a seat and 4 wheels attached. But with this car, it's not just the numbers that matter. The magic of the P3 was its layout. Unlike the big, heavy touring car derived machines it faced, the Alfa was designed around the driver, literally. Jano ran the twin drive shafts in a V formation down either side of the cockpit. This meant the driver could sit dead center, lowering the center of gravity and giving it a perfectly balanced weight distribution. And as I said, this was the first genuine single-seater race car, and it was the first purpose-built Grand Prix car. Its debut was at Monza, and not the apologetically neutered chicane fest we have today. This was the old, terrifying Monza. Banking, straights, 10-kilometer laps of unfiltered lunacy. Tazio Nuvolari, already a legend and then some, took the wheel and absolutely flattened the competition. He lapped Faglioli's Maserati, and let me repeat that, he didn't just beat them, he lapped the Maserati in second place. And from that moment, the P3 wasn't just a car, it was a weapon. Alfa went on to win 6 of the season's biggest races, including the Grand Prix of Italy, France and Germany, the holy trinity of European motorsport. But then the money ran out. You see, in 1933, the global economy was collapsing. Italy wasn't exactly on its best behavior politically, and Alfa Romeo decided it couldn't afford to go racing anymore. So they handed the P3s to a man you may have heard of, Enzo Ferrari, who was running Scuderia Ferrari as Alfa's semi-official team. And this is where the P3 story gets even more astonishing. The cars had been locked away for half the season, untouched. But when Ferrari finally got his hands on them in August, he painted a prancing horse on the side, tweaked a few bits and went on to win 6 of the last 11 races that year. They didn't just win, they obliterated the competition, using a car that had been sitting in a garage collecting dust for half of the year. Imagine pulling a car out of the storage today, bolting on some new tyres and then beating the Red Bull RB20 with it. That's how far ahead the P3 was. Then in 1934 the rules changed. Grand Prix cars now had to be heavier. They had to be bulkier. The sport was trying to impose some order. Predictably, Yano and Ferrari said, fine, we'll just make the engine bigger. Displacement was increased to 2.9 litres and the output jumped by 40 horsepower. But still, the P3 fought. Louis Chiron, the man who lent his name to Bugatti's modern hypercar, took the P3 and won the French Grand Prix, which is one of the most prestigious races on the calendar. And that year, the P3 took a further 18 wins. But by 1935, the P3 was a dinosaur, an agile, clever, sharp-fanged dinosaur, but a dinosaur nonetheless. And at the same time, the Germans, funded by, let's just say, a very serious state support, entered the ring with Mercedes and Auto Union. They brought cars that looked like something from a Batman comic, space-age silver darts with V12s and mid-mounted layouts. They were terrifying, fast, and alarmingly well funded. But then came the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Nuvolari turned up in a P3 with a bored-out engine, now 3.1 litres and 265 horsepower. And what happened next is still spoken about. The Germans dominated qualifying. The race was meant to be a formality, but Nuvolari drove like a man possessed. He lost the tyre, overtook on every conceivable line, and somehow, impossibly, beat the entire German industrial complex with a 3-year-old Alfa. It was motorsport's version of David and Goliath, only this time David was chain-smoking Italian cigarettes and doing 4-wheel drifts through carousel. By the end of 1935, the P3 was no longer competitive. The competition had caught up. Time and technology marched forward. Now it had hydraulic brakes, some suspension tweaks, but nothing that could match the relentless march of German engineering. But the car went out with its head held high. Still winning races, it had no right to win. In total, the P3 won 46 major events in just 3 years. And that's not counting hill climbs and national level races. More importantly, it reshaped the very concept of what a racing car should be. It showed that balance and innovation could beat brute force, that center-mounted drivers and clever weight distribution were the future, and it laid the groundwork for everything that came after. After 15 P3s built between 1932 and 1935, 13 still exist, which is extraordinary. One of them, chassis number 50006, sold for over $4 million at auction in 2017, which is not bad for a car with leaf springs and brakes the size of dinner plates. But at the end of it, next time you watch a Formula 1 race, with its digital dashboards, tyre warmers and mid-race balance of performance changes, spare a thought for the P3, because while Verstappen, Norris and Piastri might be the fastest men on 4 wheels today, they are standing on the shoulders of a legend that did it first with nothing but raw engineering and the smell of oil in its wake. This, quite frankly, is where Formula 1 began, not with data telemetry, not with DRS, but with an Alfa Romeo P3, hurling through Monza like a silver bullet, fired straight into the future. But yeah, at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video. What do you guys think of the car? And I just want to say, this isn't necessarily really the first Formula 1 car. I mean more with that this is kind of where the whole single-seater, purpose-built Grand Prix car thing began. Instead of like just modifying something and putting a big engine and stripping all the weight, this thing was built with one purpose in mind, and that was Grand Prix racing, and they just made it the best it could possibly be with the technology at the time. So yeah, but anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like it, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's something else I like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?